Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first of our two PlayPosIt sessions that we have here today. We're very lucky to have Emily here from PlayPosIt. She's going to show this group how to do some kind of more intermediate steps in working with videos and showing you how we can really do some dynamic and personalized learning with some of the tools inside PlayPosIt. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A section or put them in the chat section. And Lacey and I will be here to help field those questions and make sure that all of them get answered. I will say now, and I'll say again at the end of the session, that if you're interested in a PlayPosIt account after this session or after the next one, just let me know. I'll put my email address in the chat. I'm the one that handles those accounts for SMU, and we will get you all set up. And with that, Emily, take it away.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. And hey, everyone, nice to see all of you here. I will go ahead and start sharing my screen and we'll get started. So as I'm going through this more advanced session today that focuses on things like branched pathways and different applications within the platform that are a little bit more hidden, I did make an interactive checklist for you all that's going to go through each of these things that I'm showing you. So first accessing in Canvas, and then just the general steps of what we're going to be going through. So like how to make jumps or branch learning hotspots, things like that. So feel free to reference this as I'm going through it, or just at the end of today, if you want to reference this again, feel free to hold on to this. And I've pasted it into the chat, okay? So again, that is for you. It's going to kind of walk us through everything that we're going to cover today and give you steps on how to do those things once the session is done. All right, so just a quick introduction. My name is Emily. I'm the account manager here at PlayPosIt that supports SMU. I am a former teacher, so education is very near and dear to my heart. You guys can think of me as an instructional design resource, or if you ever have any questions, you are always welcome to reach out to me. We do things like host partners only webinars and have a bunch of awesome other resources available for you too. All right, so to start, I'm just going to give just a quick overview of PlayPosIt. Again, this is a more advanced session, so at this point, we're going to focus more on things like branched pathways, hotspots, jumps, things like that, rather than just the beginner things. As we know, with PlayPosIt, we are an interactive video platform. We are a modular player, which means that your video is going to sit between, so the interactive video that you create is going to sit between the video host and the viewer. All of the interactions that you're going to add to your video are going to sit directly on top of the video as a layer. So just as a reminder, because we are a modular player, you never have to start completely from scratch, and you can continue to reuse your content, swap things out, and things like that. This is your general workflow for building content within PlayPosIt. First, you need the content, whether that's coming from YouTube or a recording that you've done. Then you can pull that content directly into PlayPosIt, either through YouTube or Vimeo, or even using your own Panopto content. You have an integration there as well. From there, you would then just add your interactions to that video. All right, so again, that's just a quick overview of the premise of what PlayPosIt is. We are going to be jumping into some more advanced features today that really will allow you to create a personalized experience for your learners, all within your bulb. And just as a reminder, bulb is our term for interactive video. All right, so the first thing that we are going to focus on today are controlled jumps and retries. All right, so what I'm going to show you here is a video of a student that's completing an auto-graded fill-in-the-blank interaction. Now, the beauty of these auto-graded fill-in-the-blank interactions is that you can actually create tables out of them, which is really powerful. What you're seeing here, though, is a student who is completing this interaction. Upon submitting it, it is incorrect. So at this point, this is where I'd like you to watch very carefully. If the student clicks on retry, they'll simply be allowed to retry that answer on the spot. However, they're going to select continue, And this actually jumped them back about 7 seconds in the video. So the power of this sort of setting that you're applying to interactions is that it really gives your students an opportunity to get the answer correct. All right, so this time they go in, this time it is strengths and weaknesses, it is correct. They got that opportunity to actually rewatch the video and really understand the content that they wanted to learn or that they needed to learn. All right, so I'm going to switch over here to the PlayPosIt Designer. Again, the workflow at SMU is to use PlayPosIt through Canvas. So you will head to Canvas and follow the steps that are actually included right here in this tutorial. So for time's sake, and because I want to make sure I show you everything, I am just going to do this outside of Canvas right now, but upon accessing PlayPosIt from Canvas, you would still see the same add new bulb screen, which I'm sure you might be familiar with. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a new bulb for us. And my first step, of course, is going to be selecting a video. We'll do something science today. All right. So again, the first thing that I'm going to show you today is how you can add a jump that would take your students back to a certain point in the video depending on the response that they give. So if I take a look and head to interactions, I'll close up the template gallery this one time, and I'll go ahead and select add an interaction. I'm actually going to move this a little bit forward in the video because the premise for this sort of interaction is that I'm going to want to be able to jump them back to a certain point to rewatch. So this interaction, let's say, just comes in at 42 seconds. All right, I'm going to show this to you. As you saw in the video, you can do this with the auto-graded fill-in-the-blank interaction, which I saw in the chat there is a question about that. So what if the student misspells an answer or the answer is case sensitive? They are not case sensitive, but they are spelling sensitive. So in the case that you are using fill-in-the-blank, you can give multiple different types of spelling accommodations too. Good question. But let's go ahead and focus on multiple choice for right now. All right, so as you guys know, you would go ahead and enter in your question and responses. We'll start with spring. Okay, we actually will in a little bit dive into also these different options within the rich text editor as well as our advanced options too for your awareness. But right now, let's go ahead and just focus on adding a jump. So I'll go ahead and select my correct answer. However, let's say my students, I don't know, maybe they answer spring. So what I'm going to do to add a jump is click on the settings gear toggle, click on add jump. And when I do that, I'll have a new scrub bar that appears that allows me to determine where exactly my students will be jumped back to if they give that response. So let's say maybe they need to watch all the way back to 15 seconds in the video. And just like that, you've created a learning experience that allows your students to really head back and understand the point in the video or the content in the video that they were previously misunderstanding. You can do this with any of the responses also. So I'll go ahead and just add a jump here. If they answer fall, they obviously need to rewatch also. And I'll add a jump here as well. That can jump them back. If you are interested in jumping your students forward in a video, that is an option as well by doing the same exact thing. Clicking on that settings here, add that jump, and maybe for this one, if they did get it correct, maybe it is a differentiated video that you're giving them. So maybe based on their response that they gave that was correct, maybe at that point you would like them to jump forward to a different section because they don't need a review. Just keep that in mind that that is an option for you as well. All right, and just like that, we've added an interaction that does include jumps that take students to different points in the video based specifically on their needs. So that's just the first example that I wanted to highlight for you today. Let me see if I have another video. Okay, the next one I wanted to highlight is our hotspots. So what our hotspots are places where your students can actually click on the screen to head to different points in the video. So whereas these sort of interactions that I just showed you and these jumps that I just showed you, we'll jump them back based on a response. What hotspots are is a way for students to actually interact with that video, click on a portion of the screen that will take them to a different part of the video. So let me show you what that looks like, and I'm sure it'll make a lot more sense too. So let's say I want to have my students choose exactly where in the video they're going to want to learn from. I'll click on Add an Interaction, and I will click on Pause this time. All right, and just a reminder, everything that I'm showing you today, they are included on your interactive handout with step-by-step instructions, okay? So just if you miss anything, don't worry, it is all listed in there for you. All right, so for my branch learning experience, let's say that I would like this to be structured as more of a review. So maybe if students do need a full comprehensive review, they can click on one area to head to a certain part of the video, whereas maybe some of my other students might be ready for some more advanced topics. I'm going to create two hotspots that are going to allow that sort of experience to exist. So what I'm first going to do here is on this pause is say, review of all content. Click here. All right, from here, I'm going to actually highlight this. And as you can see in the rich text editor, I do have this jump icon. If I click on this jump icon, it's going to open up a new little window that allows me to create a jump. So since this hotspot is going to be for a full comprehensive review, maybe I'll just have this jump to 5 seconds in the video so that students can really get the full experience. If you'd like, you could actually turn these jumping mechanisms into a button too. So if I choose primary button, I can choose a color here real quick and insert it. All right, so this is actually what it's going to look like. From there, I would click on Customize, and maybe I'd like it to appear on this side of the screen. Keep in mind that with any of your interactions, you can choose exactly where they will appear. All right, so I'd like my review to be on this side of the screen. If I click on Advanced, I can make this expandable and collapsible. It looks like this is actually a new feature that we have where you can change the opacity of it. So I'm not sure if this is released for you all, but if it is not released for you all, then you will have a button right here that simply says transparency. So you would just click on that to make the background disappear. All right, and just like that, we've added one of our hotspots. I promise you this will all make sense in just a moment here. So if I then want to add another one, so maybe another button that sits on this side of the screen so that my students can decide, okay, I am ready for more advanced content, I'm going to click on Add Interaction After. Again, I'll select Pause this time, and this time for advanced topics, click here. Again, my first step in adding these hotspot jumps is to highlight it, click on that jumping icon, and then choose the point in the video that students can proceed to. So let's say that maybe they can jump to 5 minutes if they determine that they're ready for advanced topics. We'll go ahead and turn this into a button again. Again, you can play around with this too if you want to see the other options. Primary button is my favorite, so I always choose that one. So we'll go ahead and just choose another color here. We'll insert it and head to customize. Have this one appear on this side of the screen. And again, let's turn off these options and make the background transparent. All right, so just like that, in a matter of a couple minutes, I created 2 hotspot jumps that are going to create a brand new experience for my learners that will allow them to head to different points in the video based exactly on their needs. So let's take a look at what this looks like. We'll go ahead and preview it. And ooh, I forgot to show you one important thing. If you do want to include these sort of branched learning experiences, in order for your students to actually be able to jump to that point in the video, you will have to allow for fast forwarding, okay? Allowing for fast forwarding is going to allow your students to head to that point. If you still want all of the interactions in your video to be required so that students do have to complete them still, it will jump your students to that next interaction that is listed as required. So just something to think about there. If you do want to include these branched hotspot jumps, then allow fast forwarding so your learners can actually get to that point. Okay, so we'll save and let's try previewing it again. All right, something to note too, when you preview bulbs, there is a little message that pops up that allows you to choose if you're going to view the bulb as an instructor or as a learner. It's up to you based on the type of experience that you would like. Learner will give you the true learner experience. So if I click play, let's see what happens here. Oh, and I think I did not save something, but regardless, if I were to click on either of these, it would allow me to head to that next point. So this was a required interaction. We'll go ahead and give the correct answer. And now if I head back, I can truly fast forward to that 5-minute mark in the video. I'll have to go back and check why that background didn't turn out to be transparent, but I do have a feeling that our team is probably testing some things right now within our team's account. But that is what the hotspot branched learning experience can be like for your students. As you noticed, since I did have this interaction set to be required, even though on that hotspot interaction I clicked on advanced topics, it did make me answer this question first. So just keep that in mind as you're building out your interactions. If you do want to include that, either having those interactions setting to be required, if you do want your students to really answer all of those, or if you would prefer that students can just skip over those, they can. Okay, so that is what that looks like. And again, let me just double check on this setting here because it should have been transparent, but again, I really have a feeling that our team is testing some stuff since that is all looking brand new to me today. Let's just try this one more time. And I see a question, the branched learning jump covers parts of the video. Is there a way to make sure it stays out of the way? Yeah, so when you turn them into these buttons, you can determine where it gets placed. So if there is important text on the screen, when you are adjusting those options and the placement of it, you can determine exactly where it will appear to. So you can definitely customize that and make sure that it goes to the right place. All right, and that time it worked. All right, so those are hotspots. The next thing I wanted to do is just take a closer look at the different advanced options that you have available to you on each interaction, because if you have attended any of our more introductory beginner trainings, those are things that are usually glanced over, but just know that the options within those advanced settings are very powerful, and there's quite a few different options for you too. So what I'm going to do next is add an interaction. This bulb is going to look a little bit crazy soon, but we'll go ahead and add an interaction. We'll stick with multiple choice again. Actually, no, switch it up. Let's do check all. So what you're going to see on each of the interactions is that while the rich text editor is going to remain the same for each of them, the advanced settings on each of the questions might differ a little bit, just based on the question and what responses and needs might be warranted with that type of question. All right, so for check all, for instance, the basics that you will see on most of our, or on all of our interactions are going to be that the interaction is required, meaning that even if you do something like allowing fast forwarding, your students are still going to have to answer each of the questions. Simply mean that they can skip through between them to get to the next one. Interaction pauses video playback. That option is going to ensure that each time an interaction is ready to appear, it will pause the video. If you are interested in creating a durational interaction, which has the interaction appear on the screen for a certain period of time, that is an option as well, and I'll actually show that to you in just a little bit here. All right, learners can rewind after reaching this interaction. That simply means that if your student gets to that question and needs to rewatch the video, this setting would allow them to rewind it a little bit so that they could rewatch before answering the question. Randomize answer order will randomize each of the options, giving a different experience for each of your learners. Learners see feedback for unselected correct answers. Something new that we've added recently are a bunch of new feedback options that really allow you, if you'd like, to create a more summative experience for your learners. So if there's certain scenarios in which you do not want feedback to appear for your learners, then you can make that happen too. All right, so we have learners see feedback for unselected correct, as well as only showing answer highlighting on the last attempt, allowing you again to really determine when or if feedback will appear. I've included more information on that in your handout as well, so don't worry, that is there for you too. You can always determine how many attempts your students have on different questions as well. So based on whatever you need, you can have them just attempt it once and that's it. Or if you do want to give them more options, more opportunities to get something correct, you can definitely allow more than one attempt. And something that you're seeing here on the check all is that our jump looks a little bit different. So in some of the interactions too, you will see these jump options down below that allow you to add jumps here. So jump if the user answers this correctly. As a whole, you can choose where they would jump to, or if they get it as a whole incorrectly, you can again choose where they will jump to. So just keep in mind, again, each of the interactions are going to have slightly different advanced settings, but generally will be pretty similar. So again, we're seeing required, pauses, rewind, allow more than one attempt. This one I don't think will appear for you because video upload is not a part of the license, but I think you guys can get the gist of it a little bit from seeing these different options. One thing to point out is that on discussion forum, if you do choose to add a discussion forum to your bulb, you have a lot of control on how it will appear, when it will appear. You'll also have control over if you'd like the discussion forum to be auto-graded, or if you prefer to do the grading of the discussion forum after students contribute so that you can really assess if they got it correct or not. So just know that that is going to be a little bit of a different option compared to the other interactions, and that is only for discussion forums. All right, so that is a little bit about our advanced options. I also would like to just point out what some of the different options are on your rich text editor that are available to you, again, in any interaction, as well as any part of the interaction too. So for fill in the blank, for instance, in that video example that I showed you earlier today, you saw that one of the things that you can do with your auto-graded fill in the blank interactions is you can actually make those into tables, which is really cool, really powerful, and really unique way of adding interactivity to your videos. So If I click on fill in the blank, again, every time I click into a space where I will be writing, I'll see this rich text editor appear. You have this jump icon, which is where you can go to create those overlay hotspot jumps. For fill in the blank, you do have this little fill in the blank option. This is only there for fill in the blank interactions. Video, again, is not a part of this license, so don't worry about that icon. If you'd like to attach files to your interactions, feel free to select this paperclip. And if there are any sort of study guides or syllabus that you want to include to give your students that would actually allow them to download it right on the spot, feel free to use that attach a file option. That's one of our newest options that we have available. And again, it gives you the opportunity to give direct forms or paperwork or, I mean, that doesn't sound very educational, but syllabus or study guides, whatever it might be, feel free to include those attachments so that your students can have a hard copy of those too. You can always record audio into your interactions too, which is fantastic for language courses, or if you just like to give a supplemental option of how that question is phrased, you can. You can add images, you can access our equation editor, or you can do different formatting options. Again, we do support special characters as well if you do teach some sort of language course and need access to those. Upon clicking on this triple dot menu, you will also have some more options here. So adding things like links, or again, using those special characters. If there is ever a time also that you would like to include a video in your interaction, I don't know if I've added this to your checklist, but I'll go ahead and add this just as an optional thing. To do that, if you wanted to add a YouTube video or something just in the body of the question, or even as feedback or something, you can click on the source code option and actually insert some source code. It is kind of easy to find if you are using a YouTube video, but I'll add that into our advanced features handout, okay? Just know that that's there. Some more formatting options, and then of course our table that we can design from scratch. So again, as you saw in that video, the table can be a very powerful feature to include, especially with those auto-graded fill-in-the-blank interactions. Let's say that maybe this question is going to be all about, and we'll keep it with seasons. List the seasons in order. Okay, so maybe I have something along the lines of, I get these right, December through March, or March through June, or June through September, and September through December. Okay, so that's the premise for my question. If I do want to add those blanks for my students to fill in, I can either click on those add input blank option or click into the rich text editor to add those blanks. All right, so again, you can design your own tables based on whatever content you teach and what would be most meaningful to your students in this sort of question environment. So once I've added those blanks, my next step with auto-graded fill-in-the-blank interactions is just going to be giving my acceptable answers. So for this first one, the answer is winter. Maybe I want to give another spelling option because as a reminder, these are not cap sensitive, but they are spelling sensitive. So if you'd like to give as many acceptable responses as you can, just separated with commas.
And Emily, while we're typing, Monty had a question about students on the student end and inputting. Can they input equations as answers as well? Do they get those same rich text editor options?
Yeah, great question. They do. So students, if you give a free response or a discussion forum interaction for them to respond to in that sort of way, actually, I think even for these fill in the blanks, that would be an option for them to access the rich text editor so that they can respond either using audio, adding an image, or even, again, accessing that equation editor. Good question.
And Carolyn was wondering as well, when we have discussion forum responses, how, as an instructor, do they see those responses and how can they grade them?
Oh, good question. I'll pull up a video that shows you exactly what that looks like. Yeah, I'll show that to you. Let me write that down so I remember to come back to that. Okay. So once I've done this, I can just go ahead and select done, maybe apply some other advanced settings. You can always, of course, adjust where the interaction will appear to. So if you do want it to appear over the screen somewhere, you can, or by default, questions will appear in the sidebar. All right, last thing to highlight is that sometimes when you're building your interactive videos, something that you might not want every time is for the video to pause every time an interaction appears. Sometimes that sort of thing can be a little bit disruptive, and maybe sometimes you're simply just giving them some supplemental material to consider. If you would like to create an interaction that will last for a certain period of time, giving your students an opportunity to respond to that, the first thing that you would do is head to the main area, click on Interaction Pauses Video Playback. We'll turn that option off. We'll customize it, head to the timing area, and when you click on Advanced, we can choose exactly when this question will start and when it will end, so that students, again, won't be, their learning won't be disrupted in any sort of way with that interaction appearing just for a certain amount of time. Okay, and that is that. I know I will come back to discussion forums in just a moment. The last thing that I wanted to highlight here is just within the review tab, when you are reviewing your bulbs, you will have a number of different playback options here. So these playback options will apply to the entire bulb. So for instance, if you know that you always want your learners to be able to rewind once they reach an interaction, you can apply that to all of the interactions within the bulb. If you want to allow learners to skip interactions, you can also allow that, and that will apply to all of the interactions within the bulb if you'd like. Allowing fast forwarding will allow for that branched learning experience for your students. Allowing learners to retake the bulb upon completion is another option that you have. Keep in mind though, that if you do apply that option, then it will reset your student's attempt when they select retake, and it's not going to push their best score to the gradebook, it's going to push their most recent score to the gradebook. So just keep that in mind. If that doesn't sound like something that you would want, then you can always consider just giving multiple attempts on individual interactions. All right, last couple of options here are allowing learners to view a report. I can show you exactly what that report will look like. Allowing students to view their report is going to give them a page that includes all of the interactions as well as all of their responses. It is optional, of course, if you'd like to turn that on, but again, that's a great resource, especially if you are using PlayPosIt for a review activity or do want to give your students something tangible to hold onto from that assignment. Very last option.
We had our question about that one as well. Carolyn was asking, when you do want to attach a file or something like that, does that download to the student?
Yeah, so if you do want to attach a file in the rich text editor, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, then as soon as students click on this, it will trigger an automatic download for them. Yeah.
And those multiple interactions, we did also have a question about that. If they get the interaction correct, then they keep going, right? They don't have to keep doing it as many times as we permitted.
Yep, that's correct. Good questions. Okay. Last option here is just allowing learners to increase playback speed or not. So like YouTube, clicking on this settings here is going to allow your learners to choose how fast they'd like to watch the video. So if they do want to watch it a little bit slower or faster, they do have those options. However, if you do not want your learners to be able to watch this on a fast speed, you can always turn this option off. Okay, so that's just a little bit about all of the different advanced settings and bulb settings that you have available to you. Let's just take a quick look at how these tables appeared, and then we'll head to discussion forums, okay?
While that's loading, our last question that's up is if you have someone jump backwards for that reinforcement of learning, do they then go all the way through back to that initial point again, or does it move them up after they've watched a few seconds of something?
Oh, that's a good question. So it would put them back to wherever in the video you're choosing for them to go back to. However, since they've already watched through that part of the video, students do have the option at that point to like maybe skip through that or fast forward a little bit. So that's what the experience would be like. Or they could rewatch all of it because they might need it. Okay, let me see. Oh, I'm watching this as a student, so bear with me for a couple more minutes, not minutes, seconds here while our interactions appear. Okay. And there we go. Again, this is what that attach a file option would look like. If I, as the student, wanted to click on that, it would, again, download that for me. There are ways too that if you do want to include a file, like whether it's a PDF or a Word document or even an Excel sheet as a actual interaction, you can also use our web embed feature, which allows you to embed websites. But if, for instance, you ever publish a PDF or a document to the web, you can actually embed that directly into the video too, which is really awesome. I'll include information on like what sort of websites or PDFs or documents might work with that web embed feature, but just keep in mind if you'd prefer that that document appears for your students to interact with during the video, that is an option there too. Okay, so as far as discussion forums go, let me make sure there's not anything else I wanted to point out to you guys. Oh, last thing, very last thing I promise, within the designer, although I could keep going, is that if you add an interaction, and let's say you do want to create one of those auto-graded fill-in-the-blank tables, we actually have a couple of templates for those. So our vocabulary matching, our functions table, and our place and order are all templates centered around that auto-graded fill-in-the-blank, which if you select one of those, we have a ready-to-go table for you that the only thing you would have to do is go in and adjust any of the wording within it. You can remove rows, add rows, whatever you might need to do, you can go ahead and make those decisions too. Alrighty, so as far as discussion forums go, let me go ahead and head to a bulb that I believe includes a discussion forum, and if it doesn't, then I will pull up a video real quick so I can show you exactly what this looks like. All right, so here's a discussion forum that is included in one of the bulbs that I gave some students. So what you would do here is you can click into any of their discussion forum responses. So I can see exactly what each student contributed and quickly determine if they should earn points for that contribution or not. If you do have a larger class size, then you can always click on that interaction header, click on grade all, and go through, have all of my students, all of their points lined up, and again, just see their responses and determine if they earned credit or not. So that's all of it at a glance. These discussion forums are exportable for you guys as instructors. So if you would like to just export that entire discussion forum for your from your students, then you can do that. And let me pull up a video because it'll be a lot easier to see and explain it that way. So it'll actually be covered in our next training session in about 20 minutes. But one moment, let me get that pulled up for you guys. All right, so here's a look at what discussion forums will look like when they are included within your video. So your students at any point will be able to go in, contribute their own responses, reply to their peers. There you see that rich text editor appearing for them too, so that they can go in and really customize their responses as well. And again, that's what it looks like for the student. For the instructor though, since you guys will be using PlayPosIt within Canvas, once your assignment has been linked, you see this gray screen, which is a good sign. That's what you see after you've linked bulbs. Upon previewing it, if you'd like to see that discussion in that discussion forum view rather than just the monitor screen, you can preview the bulb, head to that discussion forum, and here you see the instructor viewing all of their students' responses, all of their images that they may have uploaded. You can even toggle by specific learner too. So if you do want to view individual students, you can. What you don't see here that is a new option is we've also given you guys now the option to download these discussion forums. So you'll see this little download icon right here. And if you do want to export the entire discussion as a whole, you can do that by clicking on that download option. So there you go. And I believe that might be all that I have time for today. We're right at the very end. The last thing that I just wanted to bring to your attention was that typically the way that we go about using PlayPosIt is through self-paced asynchronous learning experiences. I just wanted to point out too that we do have a broadcast application which was typically used in face-to-face formats. So an instructor would create a bulb, launch it as an assignment for their students, but launch it using our broadcast method. What that would allow your students to do is answer the questions in that bulb synchronously within their classroom environment. So you can think about it as kind of like a substitute for iClickers. We have, especially with the need now with high flex learning and some classes being online or through Zoom meetings or whatever it might be, we do also have a way where you can use PlayPosIt remotely. So I have included information on that within your handout as well on what broadcast is, how you can use it remotely via Zoom, Hangouts, Meet, whatever it might be that you use. But what that experience looks like is you as the instructor launching this bulb for your students, which by the way, you can even do this if you have just a presentation that you'd like your students answering questions to in real time. It goes into more detail within that Use Broadcast Remotely article that I've included in your handout too. But what you're seeing here is the instructor point of view, the student point of view. So students going in, entering their first and last name, although since you would be doing this through Canvas, you wouldn't even have to have students enter their first and last name. All they would do is just click on the assignment. But what you're seeing here right now is that all of these questions are appearing as the instructor wanted them to appear at different points in the video. And each time the instructor gets to a new question, that question gets pushed to the student's device, whether they're accessing this on a computer, on their phone, on a tablet, whatever it might be, those questions will get pushed to their device in real time for them to respond to. So again, sorry I don't have too much time to focus on this today, but there are some resources in your checklist on using broadcast remotely. I'll also include a short webinar that I did on broadcast back in the spring. It's like 20 minutes long. So if you do want to see what that looks like live, I'll add that in there for you too. Okay, and I know I'm at the end here. So are there any other questions that I did not get a chance to answer?
Yep, there's one left from Carolyn on when you choose that interaction option to embed a website or something like that, how does that look?
Oh, okay, good question. Here, let me see. I think I have an example of that in my other deck, of course. But here, Web embeds, so if you include like a direct link, then it would open your students up in a new tab. However, if you want to include a web embed as like a supplemental material within your bulb, this is what it would actually look like. So, teacher's going through this. All right, and here's an example of a web embed. So if you use that web embed interaction option, just paste in the website that you are looking to embed. And what that will do is allow your students to just scroll through this website as a supplemental resource while the video is still pulled up. So it's all directly within the player. They can expand it a little bit. They can pause the video to interact with it. Although if you do have the pause option enabled, then it will automatically pause the video as they go through it. So that's what that looks like. Good question. When you broadcast, is student watching from my screen? Oh, good question. So with broadcast, the students would be watching from your screen. In the article that I've included within your checklist, it talks a little bit about that and some great instructions that you can give your students, because you will have to set it up in a way that allows them to know, okay, you will have to see the video on my screen. However, the questions will appear on your device. So maybe you encourage them to use that on their phone or tablet, or just change around the windows on their screen too and make things a little bit smaller so they can see each. Okay, one more question. It looks like broadcast can be used for group work in class when students can't get close to one another. How do you suggest facilitating group interactions at a social distance? I'm not sure if I exactly understand that question. So the way that broadcast works is if you do create a bulb and if you do want your students to be answering that, giving you responses, then you would just design a bulb as you normally would. The difference would just be in how you launch it. So I guess one thing to consider is that as you're going through broadcast, you really do have the power to pause things, or maybe once a question appears, maybe that is a talking point for you all. So maybe that is something that you would then focus on for a little bit. So you can kind of tailor when the interactions will appear and how the live class discussion will go. They cannot answer questions in groups at this time. And I have a video playing somewhere. Okay, good questions, everyone. Well, hopefully you found this to be helpful. I know it's a lot of information, especially on these more advanced topics that we don't generally get as much time to discuss. But if you have any questions on anything, again, your checklist that I shared with you goes through each of the items that I shared with you today. I'll add another couple of resources to it based on some of the questions that you all asked also. And if you ever have any questions about these features, you can always email me directly. It's just emily@playposit.org, or Jennifer too. Jennifer's a pro.
I'll agree. Emily is a great resource to us, and she's helped us and she's helped our instructors use PlayPosIt in a variety of ways. Even before remote instruction happened, she's even helped us find ways to use PlayPosIt in research. So she is a great partner for us here at SMU, and we're really lucky to have her.
Thank you. And here's my dog also, as well as my contact information. So feel free to write that down, just emily@playposit.org. But thanks again for coming and learning more. And thank you so much, Jennifer, for organizing this and being a great support too.
You bet. We're going to be back at the top of the hour again. We're going to talk about PlayPosIt from the introductory kind of level. And so if you have an account and you still have not built anything just yet, or this is so interesting that you'd like to get an account and get started, this next hour is great for you too. It's also going to be great for some reinforcement if you've been building some bulbs and have some questions. So we're going to close out the space for now, but we'll be right back at 11.